Welcome. I'm Cy Hoekstra. This is Deep Sigh, humor and my adventures in blindness. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be telling you a story about me and my sighted wife going to one of those restaurants that is pitch black and all the waiters are blind. Quickly, before we get to that, if you want to support what I'm doing here and get all these episodes and the written stories a month before everybody else, go to deepsy.net, that's deepsy.net, and become a paid subscriber. It is not at all expensive. It's $4 and a little bit of change per month is the lowest level. Thank you so much to everyone who has already subscribed. I really appreciate it. It's been very encouraging. It is genuinely necessary for me to continue doing this too. So thank you for actually supporting what I'm doing here. A lot of the feedback has been great from you too. I'm happy that this is making people happy. That's what I'm trying to do. I did hear that some people were having trouble finding the paid podcast feed to put into your podcast player. So I did make like a little page that has really pretty simple step-by-step instructions on how to do that on the website. Just go to deepside.net and click paid subscriber podcast feed. I know that can be slightly technologically intimidating, but once you see how to do it, it is actually quite simple. And then you can hear a month early the episodes in your actual podcast player, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. You don't have to listen like on the browser on the website. Okay, let's get to the story without further ado. A blind husband and sighted wife at a Dine in the dark restaurant. Our experience at Montreal's Au Noir. I pronounced that perfectly. Okay, here we go. Sometime in the 90s, a Swiss pastor named Jorge Spielmann started inviting people over to his house to dine blindfolded. Jorge was blind, and he wanted to give sighted people the chance to exercise empathy for blind people. This is a terrible idea. Putting on a blindfold is not anything like being blind. It is like going blind. It simulates the very first moments of blindness. That is not my experience. I do not wake up every morning and go, "Oh no, I've lost my vision!" and tell my wife she must immediately take me to the emergency room. No, my mornings are mostly the same as yours. Unless you're a morning person, in which case you're a monster and we're not the same. But you are not able to experience how similar our mornings are. You can't put a blindfold on when you wake up and have a routine, uninteresting blind morning. That takes practice. Within about a minute, you'll be tripping head over heels into your bathtub shouting, "I give up!" Anyway, later, Pastor Jorge leveled up his little project. He opened a restaurant to turn what he was doing at home into a business and employ blind waiters. Now this move I respect. We constantly deal with sighted people's ignorance about how our lives work. Might as well make some novel experience money off it. Several places across the globe later copied the idea, some with blindfolded customers, some with pitch black dining rooms. None are near me. There is, however, one in that little corner of the Great White North that insists English is for peons. That's right, I'm talking about Quebec, a place I, a peon, visit frequently because it's where my wife's family lives. The restaurant is in Montreal, and it's called Au Noir, O-N-O-I-R, a purposeful misspelling of the French phrase meaning in the dark. It's the pitch black dining room variety. My wife, Gabrielle, and I first went about 10 years ago, but I didn't remember much from that trip, certainly not enough to write about it. But I did remember one detail from when Gabrielle's mom and brother went a few weeks after us. It was her brother recounting with indignance that he discovered his mom quietly stealing his food in the dark because she liked it better than hers. One evening this summer, Gabrielle and I returned. The restaurant is in a different location now, with notable changes. As we arrived, Gabrielle told me there was an outdoor dining area, which seemed to me like it would be less dark because of the sun. She also said the waiters serving those tables were attractive in the way front-of-house staff always are, presumably a less important hiring qualification for the darkroom. But the thing that got me was the waiters outside were not blind. Most restaurants would claim blind people can't be waiters, but I think we can all understand why this particular restaurant would have credibility issues making that argument. We entered, getting a menu and ordering before heading into the darkness. There were lockers to store our things, not because in the dark someone might treat a stranger's purse the way my mother-in-law treated her son's food, but because you might leave something on the floor that could make a waiter stumble and throw soup in your face. Our blind waiter, Anna, not her real name, appeared and explained the three of us would be walking carefully into the dining room in a little train holding the shoulders of the person ahead. I followed instructions and grabbed Gabrielle's shoulder before thinking, wait, what am I doing? I let go and walked normally with my white cane. We entered a small darkened room, passed between blackout curtains, and then went through another door to the dining room. Underfoot, I felt carpeting between the tables with raised lips on the edges. The floor under the tables and chairs was bare. It was a tactile guide for the feet of blind waiters with hands full of dishes. Anna told us that she would be back with our drinks soon. In the meantime, we could call her name loudly if we needed anything, like assistance finding the lit bathroom. That's a bathroom with light, not an awesome bathroom. I was disappointed to learn they compromised the authenticity of the blind experience by not making sighted people pee in the dark. The room was not large, I guessed 12 or 15 tables. There was music playing quietly for obvious reasons, and I could hear our neighbors' conversations. They sounded surprisingly normal. Nobody was talking about the darkness. This had to be at least a partial front, but I appreciated it nonetheless. I would not have enjoyed a whole meal surrounded by people exclaiming things like, "I just don't know how blind people do it." While I calmly took in my surroundings, Gabrielle was in a minor panic. She said those first moments were uncomfortable and disorienting. Her first instinct was to close her eyes, reasoning, she told me, quote, "You can't do anything to me I won't do to myself." We laughed. I didn't know who you was, but I hoped they had been put in their place. And the tactic did, in fact, settle her down. The food started coming. The rolls were excellent, as were the appetizers, a quiche for Gabrielle and burrata toast for me. The cocktails were watered down, but the house amber was great. For a main course, Gabrielle had duck with some potatoes, veggies, and an apricot sauce. "Now this will be the real test," she said. I asked why. Because now there were multiple things on the plate she would have to locate and cut. Plus, the sauce was on the side. Dipping proved to be the most frustrating part. She loved the sauce, but couldn't always find it. I, naturally, had no trouble winding my fettuccine with pork belly around my fork. Unfortunately, it sounded more interesting than it tasted. Dessert was great, but Gabrielle's matcha green tea lava cake beat my cheesecake. She definitely won ordering, which Gabrielle has given permission to tell you is not usually the case. Blind people do not cook the food. From what I found online, that's the norm at these places. It seems odd. The mission is raising awareness about blindness and providing jobs for blind people, but they're acting like we can't cook. We can, in fact. I'm the primary cook at home, and there are blind professional chefs. But go to the FAQ section of another Dine in the Dark restaurant called Noir, a lot of these places have less than original names, and you will find this little gem. Q. Are the chefs blind/visually impaired? A. No, our chefs are not blind or visually impaired. The kitchen is well lit to ensure only the highest quality ingredients and industry standard preparation techniques are used. The message is clear. A kitchen with even a single blind cook in it cannot ensure only the highest quality ingredients and industry standard preparation techniques are used. And you only publish this FAQ if you imagine your customers will be afraid of blind chefs bumbling around the kitchen pouring Lysol into the stew instead of vinegar. I'd honestly prefer if Noir didn't beat around the bush here. Q. Are the chefs blind/visually impaired? A. No. They can all see, we swear. We would not let blind people go Mr. Magooing around our kitchen. Blind chefs. Lol. There is a hyperlink in the text if you don't remember the 1990s Liam Neeson comedy movie Mr. Magoo featuring an absurd stereotype of a blind person. So if you want to watch it, you can click it, but also don't. Before dessert, Gabrielle had to use the restroom, but didn't want to call Anna's name out loud per instructions. She tried to psych herself up. I noted that I could guide her back to the door myself, but I knew better than to disrupt the process. Getting through the day without frustration as a blind person is all about planning, routines, and organization. I wasn't about to give Anna the headache of runaway customers. Eventually, Gabrielle worked up the courage to say, "Anna." It was no louder than she was speaking to me. We laughed again. She then turned up the volume ever so slightly, but that was enough for Anna. I'm guessing keeping an ear out for timid customers with full bladders is a regular part of her job. At the end of the meal, Anna showed us back out into the light and said goodbye. She was kind, hospitable, and professional throughout. It made me feel a bittersweet pride. Blind people often evaluate other blind people on how they represent us to sighted people. It's a sort of blind respectability politics. I have no interest in doing that. At the same time, these places exist specifically for sighted people to pay attention to us in ways they normally don't. Customers will, consciously or not, judge the waiters and then form opinions about blind people as a whole. There's no escaping it. I'm sure Anna knows the weight she's carrying, and she carries it with grace. We said goodbye to the sighted staff on our way out. Several seconds later, the maitre d' came running after us. "Excuse me, I am so sorry, but you have forgotten to pay?" he said deferentially. "They told us you pay outside after leaving the darkroom, but you can't just change the script of a restaurant meal and expect everyone to remember. You pay, then get up from the table, not the other way around. The waiter at the register told us guests walk out without paying a couple times a night." She said, sounding embarrassed, she found it terribly awkward to go after them. "Occasionally, they get all the way home and call to give credit card information. The number of people who have dined and dashed without ever realizing it has to be a lot more than zero. There are simple fixes here. Have the blind waiters remind people as they're leaving, or put up a sign. I hear sighted people find those helpful." It was a lovely, warm night as Gabrielle and I walked hand in hand through a park back to the metro. Lots of people were out and in good spirits. Montreal is lovely in summer. It's death in winter, but you probably don't have family to visit there during the holidays, so you can go when it's nice. Despite all my criticisms, I'd say it's worth visiting Au Noir while you're there. It's certainly a rare experience, and it will get you thinking outside the box about blind people. Not as far outside as I'd like, but outside nonetheless. And they're employing blind people. That's great in itself because our employment numbers are abysmal, but they're also giving us jobs we don't usually get, which is worth supporting. Plus, now you know things to order and avoid to have a great meal. Just, for the sake of the sheepish Canadian waiters, please remember to pay. Okay, that was the end of the story, but before I go, I do want to tell you about one thing that I found while I was researching. Researching is a generous word. While I was looking up stuff about these restaurants for this piece, I was looking for, if blind people had ever actually been chefs at one of these restaurants, and I found a local news piece from somewhere in Washington State of a time that this had happened, that a relatively well-known blind chef named Deborah Erickson cooked a meal at one of these places. And I was going to link to it, but it was just the worst combination of blind puns and local news anchor goofiness with the silliest local news anchor tone of voice. So instead, I'm just going to tell you about some of the stuff that they said because it was so ridiculous. So the news piece starts out with, they're showing these people eating with blindfolds on and just talking about how it's in a lot of ways a normal restaurant meal. But then he goes, "But this is unlike any dinner party you've ever seen. Consider it a blind date." And then over footage of the people trying to get the food onto their forks and spoons, he goes, "Searching, scooping, sometimes in vain. Each empty fork with a serving of perspective." And then at the end of the meal, as he's wrapping up the piece, he goes, "It's a new point of view, whether you can see it or not." So anyways, I didn't link to this guy. And I'm not going to tell you his name or the name of the news station or anything because they annoy me. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. I will be back next week with another story if you want to support what I'm doing here and get all these episodes and the written stories a month before everybody else. Go to deepsy.net. Remember, if you want your paid podcast feed, go to deepsy.net and just click that paid podcast feeds button right there on the homepage. Okay, thank you all so much. I will see you next week. Goodbye.